Hey everybody, Danny Mod here. Thanks for joining us. This week I had a question from Martin who asked, Danny, I've seen so many articles online and in magazines telling me how to hit the ball 300 yards. He said, look, I'm in my 60s, I've got no chance of hitting it 300 yards. Is there anything I can specifically do that could add yardage without doing my back in or breaking a hip? And absolutely there is. No matter what your age, whether you're a very young 20-year-old or in your 60s, 70s, there are 2 or 3 things that you can do that will add yardage to your game without getting into positions like Cameron Champ where your hips are over here and your body's back here. Those things are reserved for generally the younger guys who are working out in the gym on a regular basis. So they are important, but these 3 things will work for any of you, no matter what your flexibility or age. So we're going to give you those in this week's training, but before we do, if you're new to the channel and this is one of your first videos, I would love for you to become one of our subscribers. I release content like this every single week to try and help you improve your game. So let's start with basically the most common, some of the basics, right? So if you want to increase your yardage, you've got to start hitting it out of the center of the golf club more often. Now, the question is how often do you check where you're actually hitting the ball? So many players, when they're hitting it, the good players can tell whether it's a heel strike or a toe strike, but the average amateur, they really struggle. They think they're hitting it out in the middle a lot of the time, but when we put like face tape on the club, I'll show you just hit this here, look. I've got a little bit of face tape on the club here. This is important. You can use a couple of things. I've got face tape here. This will tell me where I hit the golf ball in the face. And if you look at this here, for instance, if I start hitting the ball, this is the center here, if I start hitting the ball even just slightly here, that will lead to a 10% decrease in your distance. So if you can get that ball coming out of that center more often, you will increase your yardage by 10%. But you need to know exactly where you're doing it. So the first thing I would do is go and invest in some face tape, go and see your local professional or local golf store. Alternatively, a really simple fix is to go to a supermarket and get yourself some foot spray. Just spray the face. It will leave a nice white kind of powder on top of the face. And when you start hitting golf balls, it will tell you where you're hitting it on the face. Without knowing that, you know what? You could be just leaving 20 yards on the table because actually you think you're hitting a really good shot and it's slightly out the neck. The question is, when you start to identify where it is on the face, let's say it's coming out the heel, you'll be amazed once you start becoming aware of this, what you can start to do to start moving that into the sweet spot. You know, one of the things I often say to the guys once they start to kind of become aware of where they're hitting it in the face, I said, look, now you're hitting off the heel, see if you can start hitting it closer towards the toe and see what happens. Hit a few shots towards the toe, have a quick look. When they're trying to hit it towards the toe, they'll find that they've now moved that ball from the heel strike much more towards the center and their yardage increases. So really, really simple tip, but hugely, hugely important and one that we often miss. So let's move now to tip number 2. So tip number 2 you can do in order to add some yardage to your game is simply just make sure that when you're coming into impact, the face kind of matches up with the launch that you're trying to hit the ball on, right? So if you want to hit the ball a long way, you need the ball up in the air and you need it carrying, right? And you need the right type of spin. If you can get the right type of spin on the golf ball, it will travel a decent distance. The question is, how do you do it? Well, the key thing is this. If this was a hammer and this was a nail, the most powerful way of hitting the nail is getting the hammer to go straight in to the nail and straight in to wherever it's going, right? If that hammer comes up at a slight angle, you may get the nail moving forward, but it's not going to be as powerful. If it comes up at a slight angle, again, not going to be as powerful, smashing that nail into the piece of wood or wherever you're hitting it, right? So we want to, as best we can, get that club matching through impacts. It has to, clearly the club has to come on an upward angle through the impact area to launch that ball up in the air. But then when it does come up, we've got to make sure that it matches. So let me show you this a little bit closer here. So we want to move the ball up in the air. So that angle is where we want the ball to go, right? So what we want to do is this. We don't want the club coming down here because that was not going to produce the maximum amount of power to get the ball airborne, is it, right? The other thing we don't want it to do, we don't want the club coming up too steeply because again, that's not getting the maximum power. As best we can, we want to try to get the loft matching the angle that we're trying to get the ball up in the air at. So let me show you how you can go about working on this. I'm just going to put this kind of alignment stick in the ground. There's almost like a launch pad here to give you like a visual aid. But the key is this. We need a very good, strong impact position with driver. Now you'll see with a simple, one of the best players here, when they come through impact here, they aren't wristy. They're very strong through the impact area. Now, if you imagine playing tennis, I don't know if you're a tennis player at all, but one of the things I learned when I was playing a topspin in tennis is this. The racket's almost angled downwards and you brush up the back of the golf ball, or sorry, the tennis ball, like this, and it produces topspin. It's not a roll of anything, and it's something similar in golf. What we're trying to do here is, I'm going to exaggerate this, we almost want to get that good strong position here, but watch this, I'm almost moving the club up, or brushing it up the back of the ball. The reality is it doesn't happen exactly like that, but it's quite a nice feeling, an image to maybe get. So you almost feel like you're, in theory, you're not flicking it, so you almost feel like you're de-lofting the club, but what you're doing in reality is you're moving the club upwards and you're brushing up the back of the golf ball. So you can try to get that feeling initially in slow motion where we come back here, we're not flicking around here, we're not coming in. What you're going to do, there's the golf ball there, that's the position we want to impact here, and we're going to brush the club up the back of the golf ball. It isn't this, by the way. It's not a cricket drive in any shape or form. We're not going forward. We're still working the club going around here, look to the left-hand side for left-handers. But what we're doing is we're brushing up the back of the golf ball. So let's show you how you can work in this. When you swing back, what we want to almost do is you want to get the wrists naturally when they're coming in. There's a little bit of a hinge, and what you're doing is you're hinging, but then you're restoring this line you started. So it's hinge and restore, and hinge and restore. Restoring this position here, breaking it here, restoring it here, and trying to get that club brushing up the back of the golf ball on that launch we've just created there. Let's have a look at this in action. Nice and small swing start off with back, brushing up the back of the golf ball. And what I've done here is I've finished quite short, because what I'm trying to do here is I want you to feel what it's like to get that club being in a very strong, stable position through the impact area. A few weeks ago, I put out a video called the Catapult Method. I'll put it up here for you to have a look at. Now, this could be combined really nicely with this. In order to get power and distance in your swing, you need a stable impact position. But going now into tip number 3, you also need club head speed. So let's show you how you can introduce club head speed to this stable impact position. So what you're going to need to generate club head speed you don't want loads of arm speed, you don't want loads of body speed, you need club head speed. To do this, you need to let this club start to kind of whip through. If we were cracking a whip here and creating some speed here, we wouldn't be doing lots of body motions at all. Too many people, when they're trying to hit the ball far, what they're trying to do is this. They're trying to heave the ball forward. They're trying to push it forward. What we want to do to get speed is we need to feel like we're getting this almost catapulting effect through the shot. So I'm going to show you now how you can apply this to the swing. The first thing I want you to do is hold the club just a little bit softer. You know, the image I've often talked about here is almost like holding a tube of toothpaste, holding it firm enough so the toothpaste just comes out slowly, but not firm enough so it disappears completely. So holding it a little bit looser here, and then what we do as we're coming into the golf ball, we're holding it a bit softer, and we create this, it's almost like lag. You may have seen it before, people discussed it, a little bit of lag in the swing. We create this lag, and then we create the snap. So it looks like a bit of lag, and then snap, snap. So we're here, we're letting the club snap or catapult into the shot. Let's have a look at this in action. So we're getting ourselves set here, we're making our swings, and we're basically getting the sensation here of letting the club catapult into this position here. We're not catapulting so it's kind of doing this and becoming flicky. What we're doing is we are catapulting it into that position we was trying to feel in tip number 2. So let's have a look at this in action here. We're going to relax, and you've got to get some speed. Now, it does require a bit of trust. It might feel a bit reckless because it really is a lot of speed, but we're not putting the body, under as much strain as we could be doing if we were working on loads of hip and body movements. So let's add a bit of speed into this and feel that impact position at the same time. So here we go, back. Just a short punchy one to try and feel that position. So 3 things we've done today to try and help you add a lot more power to your game. First thing, start to learn where you're hitting it on the face. I've got some face tape here, but you know what? The foot spray from any supermarket is often just as good, if not better, okay? Because it'll tell you where you're hitting it on the face. Once you start to become aware of where you're hitting it on the face, it just becomes so much easier to kind of start to adjust and play. If you start hitting it off the heel, trying to hit it closer towards the toe a few times, you then start to move it towards the center, you're gonna gain yardage almost straight away. The next thing you're gonna need to do, obviously, is make sure that you're hitting it, first of all, up, yeah? Once you get the club swinging upwards, then what you're trying to do is trying to get the loft of the club roughly matching the launch angle that you're trying to hit. So how do we go about working on that? We try and get the feeling here of this. Good, strong position here. We're not hitting the ball up with a flick here. What we're doing is we're hitting it up here with actually a very strong, stable motion. In tennis, it's like brushing up the back of the golf ball. If I was exaggerating this, it's like almost this. It's almost this motion here. You're brushing it up, but it's a real exaggerated motion there. But that will give you that upward strike, but really stable. From that position, you've learned that feeling. You want to add some speed into this. So I suggested looking at maybe in my catapult theory, where basically what you're trying to do here is this. We don't want people trying to heave the ball or try and completely go forward when they're trying to kind of hit powerful shots. We want this to be catapulted through. I go into that in more detail up in this video here, but we want to get some speed in this motion. So once you've got the feeling here, you've got a feeling of the center of the face, and what we're going to do now is start to add a little bit of speed into that motion. So we're here, we're going to let go, hold it in a position, try to get some whip here, really feel like you're hitting up the back of that golf ball and keeping that face nice and stable. Just like that. So I hope it's really helpful. Of course, if you enjoyed the video and you think some of your friends could benefit from a few extra yards, please share it with them. They all could do with some help. And if you're new to the channel and this is one of your first videos, please consider subscribing. Until next week, have a great golfing week.